just a little story for those listening. My husband, Tom, has had cardiac issues. And after COVID, he didn't have COVID anymore, but after COVID, he had gone down to feed horses. We have horses, and come up and he was sitting at the table and he just looked gray. Like, that's the only way I can describe it. He just looked gray and exhausted. And I actually had an appointment that day with Deb, and I called and said, could Tom take it instead? And Tom had seen her, and done some blood work and stuff. And she said yes. And I remember you listening to his heart, looking at him and said, you are going to the emergency room now. I'm calling ahead. There is something wrong. And sure enough, the doctor came in, cardiologist. I don't think anything's wrong. We've done tests, but we're going to do a heart cath just to make sure. And of course they went in, he had artery kind of behind his heart where they couldn't see, 87% blocked. And so I always credit you with saving my husband's life, because he's still around many years later, still having some cardiac issues, which they can't figure out. I'm wondering if it's long COVID or, maybe something else, but I'm sure grateful to you and to your practice. You guys also were in Alaska for a while, right? You were doing some things up there. Tell us a little bit about that experience. I find it fascinating that you were in that area. You were helping a lot of indigenous people, right?
So after we opened our family practice in rural New York, we moved out to Colorado, and we were in Grand Junction and ended up working up in Rangeley. We were helping support them because they needed physicians. And then we actually moved up there and took over full time. And it was a good place for us to go because in the days we just had wet films. There was no CT scanner at all. We had films x-rays that we, had I didn't do it, but the x-ray tech would have to wet mount them, and we'd put them up on the screen and we'd read them. And, we took care of whatever rolled off the highway, whatever was out of the mines, chest pain. All of the patients in the town became our patients, and we ran the full-time family practice and ER there. But we'd come from Junction where we knew all of the providers. So it was great. So we had a great referral base, but we were 90 miles from there, so it was a great way to use our skills there. And then we ended up, before we'd moved from New York, my husband was doing some time in Alaska, and we actually went, when we were thinking about where do we want to land, after residency, he and I both went up and we worked in Point Barrow, Alaska, which is 300 miles above the Arctic Circle. And then coming back, New York and Buffalo didn't look so bad. So we actually stayed there about 14 years before we made it back out here, which is where I grew up. But so we had a link with Alaska anyway, and we had some locums companies contacting us when our kids were little and we were doing ER, was saying, could you come up and do some shifts? And so while we were working ER, we could batch hours. And so my husband went up and worked some up there, and I did some. My daughter, when she turned, she was 18, she had her EMTB. So they have village health aides up there that they take, and all you have to have is an EMTB, and then they take you up, they train you. And they would literally fly her into communities, and she would care for the people and then talk with the ER. Well, my husband would go up to the ER and she would fly out and take care of people and so on. So it was just kind of our link that we had up there. And during COVID, they were running really short on people. So we were able to I was doing my practice just as video during COVID. And so I'm like, well, I can easily go up there and work while we're doing this because I can do video from anywhere. So we went up and started working and covering family practice and ER up in Dillingham, which is a small village right where the Aleutian Islands take off. But that main hub hospital has 28 outlying villages that they take care of. And when I got there, there was no diabetes program to speak of. They'd had a nurse practitioner who'd been gone about 5 years. And it's an indigenous population with a huge risk of diabetes. So we were able to get onto it. We were able to get $1 million a year grant to establish a diabetes program, which I did up there. Rewrote my weight loss manual for diabetics. But again, last year was the first time that the American Diabetes Association Standards of Care said, don't treat the glucose, treat the metabolic problem. But That's what I've been doing for forever. So that's what we did when we were up there. And it was funny because they were always like suspicious about being cared for by white people. It's like people have come up there and sold them a bag of goods a lot of times, and they certainly have been experimented on and things. So, when COVID vaccines came out, they were like, you're not testing this on us, kind of thing. So it was just an interesting population. And as I started taking care of people, they would schedule a full day for me, but I would have maybe a third of the people show up at all. And those were usually the ones that worked in the hospital that we could call when they didn't show up and said, come on down, we're ready for you. So, but as I started working with them, their diabetes was coming in check, but they were also losing weight, which again was because we were doing it the right way, in my opinion. So as soon as people saw everybody losing weight, they're like, wait, because nobody up there wanted to have their blood be, nattered out about their blood sugar and how they couldn't eat this and couldn't eat that. I had a lot of people that were on insulin, and they just ran themselves high because they couldn't afford to get low when they're out on their snowmobile or out on their boat. So they just ran themselves high. They could never afford to go low. And so we had A1Cs that should always be, normal is below 5.6. A concern is above 6.5. And we had 14s, 13s. Numbers, people were still losing feet up there. It's horrific, right? But all of a sudden, people were interested in being there. And within 3 or 4 months of being there, all of a sudden my schedule was relatively full. And then it got to where after 6 months, people would not miss that appointment because then they couldn't get back in quickly enough with me. And then I would work there, and then they would fly me into the villages. So it was all, dirt runways. They had a few that were paved, but most of them were dirt runways. And we'd take these little skip hoppity planes, and we'd go up there, and we'd fly out to the communities and see the patients, it was just interesting and to be able to see how these people live, to be able to, it's not a matter of, do you have a humidifier? It's like, do you have electricity? People living in tar paper shacks that also for the other part of the year fly down and live for 6 months in Hawaii sometimes, So it's just all in priorities. It's a real different philosophy with all of it. And so it was a real learning experience for me, with them kind of taking me under their wing and exposing me to what is their life like. And the saddest part for me was as I was taking care of some of the younger adults that, the 12 to 18-year-olds, seeing them, and they would come in and people would ask them, so do you have diabetes? And they would say, not yet. And it was so powerful because it wasn't, it was just a given for all of them. They knew they were going to have it. They just don't have it yet. And so that was a big part of empowering them to understand that there were things that we were responsible for helping them with, but as long as we did, we could keep them from necessarily having to, race into diabetes. But we did that. And then I did that up until about 1.5 years ago. With travel, it took me 2 days flying to get to Dillingham and 2 days to get back. So we would fly through Anchorage to Seattle back to here. So it was always interesting going back and forth. And we had some interesting little events with planes. We would get weathered in, and they all do visual flying to get into places. And we would get a call from the plane in Dillingham saying, we've got a short window open. We're flying in beyond the runway. We're coming in hot. And they would not turn off the plane. They would come in and they'd flip it around, and we would jump in, throw our bags in and head back out and try and get back with these bouncing planes through the weather, trying to get back before it weathered in and we couldn't see to land. So we had one time when we had to make several rounds because there was a bear sitting on the runway. So it was an interesting and just a very broadening experience. But yeah, I had a great time.
Wow. Well, you must be being kept around for a purpose to go through all that, still be alive. So, what you talked about, it was a real learning experience. What did you learn about yourself during that time?
It's always humbling to realize that you don't know everything, right? And long ago, I understood that the more I learned, the more I realized I didn't know. But when you get into different communities, I worked inner city Buffalo, with very different populations. Most of my patients in my clinic as I was training were Black, and inner city Black, right? So it was very inner city, and the few whites that were part of it were mostly inner city as well. So it was dealing with, again, we just assume everybody, has this lifestyle of whatever, or if I talk to you about this medication, you're going to pick it up, but maybe you can't afford to do that. Maybe it's, do I buy food or do I do this? And so it's understanding, it's not a lack of work ethic that throws them there, so understanding that these people have a desire, even in inner city Buffalo, to be well and to be healthy and to have a good life, right? And if they don't, it's maybe because there's depression or they don't see a way out, right? And so that was an interesting place to train, because it was so different from my background. When I grew up in a Albuquerque, and then in a ranching community in New Mexico, and then went to CU Boulder. I mean, totally different, right? So it was very eye-opening for me there. And then you kind of get into this rhythm of taking care of people, and we've been in rural America here. But when you get up there, again, it's a whole different community with very different philosophies, different beliefs, different structures. And so you can't just go and impart your importance on that, right? And for them, I remember talking with a 13-year-old about, we don't deal with weight at that point. It's just about, making sure that they have energy and they feel well. And that's what they want, making sure that they are achieving the goals that they want to in life. And afterward, mom wanted some time to talk to me alone. So the child left the room, and she goes, "Thank you for not making this about him being chubby, because we love his cheeks and we don't want him to lose those cheeks." So again, we have this vision of what we think is great or healthy, but they also have their vision of what is healthy and the way they want to look at people, and so it's not me trying to imagine this, slim model kind of essence on them, and understanding what is healthy for them. What do they see as feeling good? And it's completely different from what I might envision of, here, let me fix you, right? It's not that at all. It's not me fixing them. It's about me understanding how they feel like what they feel like they want to achieve, and helping them get there. And it's so completely different from what I do here, down in landlocked Colorado. It's very different. So that was fun.
So you couldn't go in and just fix Barbies and G.I. Joes.
Not just go in and fix them. Exactly.
What has been some of the struggles in your journey? I mean, you in many ways you've talked about, just some of the things you've had to overcome, but what would you say are, some of the biggest things you've had to overcome just personally?
So, one of the interesting things was just trying to find that balance between family and work, very dedicated to what I do, but also hugely valuing family and wanting to make sure I was there for my kids. That was, again, I always wanted to do family practice. My dream was not to do ER, but I did do ER when the kids were little, when I first got out of residency, because I could compartmentalize that very easily, and my husband and I could work our shifts out. We could batch them so we had time to travel as a family. So that was one of those things, kind of redirecting my vision that I would work ER. And then when we were approached and we decided to open our family practice, we had 2 children, and we made a commitment. We bought that rural farmhouse. We started getting loans and everything else, and I found out I was pregnant again. Oddly enough, as a family practice doc, I guess we forgot to know how that worked, right? It was, we said 2, but didn't say we wouldn't have 3, right? So that's how it works. But I was pregnant and hiding from the banks, hiding from the hospitals that were going to support it, and helping us with that effort that I was pregnant, because I did not want them to know. But as we renovated our farmhouse, we actually renovated the back part of the farmhouse into kind of a little living area. And we had an amazing woman that had 3 kids stair-step from ours, that helped us with our kids as they were growing. We became very close. We traveled together later on. But I had my son, and 3 days later, I was back in the office seeing patients, but I was breastfeeding him. So I would come in, I would breastfeed him. She was back there, and she would stay in that living area. We'd have a swing set back in the back. I'd breastfeed him for a little bit, and then I would run. And so it was trying to figure out having those support people in my life that were willing to help support my dream of caring for for communities or people, and realizing that I could not have done it without them. And they made it much more doable, but we were able to keep the kids and the family close, and we were able to not just separate that. So I didn't have them off somewhere for the long hours that we were working. My kids did have to deal with me talking about diarrhea with people on the phone at dinner, because I wasn't just always get up and leave, every time we had a call. But we took call 24/7 for 35 years. I mean, part of why we had moved to Rangeley was because they allowed us to do 14 days on covering ER and family practice, and then we had 7 days off where they would bring in a locums to cover. But if we didn't leave town, people just came to our house. I mean, we had people that rang the doorbell, and could you check my daughter's cheek? I think she's got frostbite. My husband on a weekend was literally on his tractor in the back, and had somebody show up there for saying they don't call 911, they just come to your office. So those are the kinds of things. It's that intrusion on family life that becomes just part of who you are and part of who my kids were, and they had to grow up with it. So kind of encompassing your life.
Yeah, I coach, that I coach small business owners, and I always say, you don't have a business life, and you just have a life. Mm-hmm. And if something's going on in your business, it affects your personal relationships in life. And if something's going on personally, it affects your business. And you painted a picture beautifully around how you can integrate what you love to do with also who you are, right? A mom, not just a doctor, a wife. And so I hear, if you're going to do this and you're in the medical field, you need to marry a doctor. You need to learn everything you would typically might do if you were a stay-at-home mom. He needs to learn to cook and do the laundry and take care of the kids. I know he can't breastfeed the baby, but everything else, right?
We tried. No, I'm just kidding. No.
And you need to buy a big house and renovate it, and then put your family in the back and have good support people. So that, I love that formula, but yes. Obviously we do it differently. When I had my first daughter, I traveled, and I was in the cosmetic industry and worked a lot, and I had a woman I brought with me because I was breastfeeding my child and having to fly to New York, and so I just brought her with me. I mean, she was like part of our family, and fortunately, you guys, I'm assuming, and I made enough money to be able to do that. Not everybody might be able to do that. In fact, I was saying to Tom yesterday, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but I feel like our humanity and our community is really being affected. And I often think about, because my daughter has chronic Lyme, and so I'm on some Facebook groups. I have to be careful because it's tragic. It's just like, I wish I was a doctor and I could help, because people are, the suicide rate is higher. They're so sick and can't find answers. They've run out of money. They're living in their car. They're just something. You need to go to medical school, Dr. Salter, and be a Lyme doctor also, be an ILADS doctor, because we just don't have them. And like you encountered, where, all the professionals you went to did not really know how to help you in obesity, is how I feel about going to all of these doctors with my daughter and not having them understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so I was just saying to Tom, and there's no community. Like, I wish I could form a community to help the people caring for the people, mm-hmm. right? Not just the people in it, but the people like me, like us, who are trying to do our best and pulling our hair out that we don't have answers, and wondering if our children are going to live. I mean, it could be that devastating, right? And so I love that I know it was hard, I'm sure, to be on 24/7, but I love how you have all your life really loved well by doing good in every day and what you did towards your family. when did you come to Colorado? When did you guys come and open your practice in Colorado?
So we were actually recruited by St. Mary's Hospital and came in 1996. So that's when we came back here. And St. Mary's was trying to do a self-insured program, I think, for all of the Western Slope. And so they were trying to open practices everywhere. Ours just ended up being at the hospital. But the interesting thing was I ended up taking care of a lot of the physicians and nurses and the medical people in that community because our office was right there in that building. But from there, like I said, they were only open for a short time, realized they weren't going to do that, and then closed our practice. So my husband and I opened our own practice in 99 in Grand Junction. And then in 2003, we ended up moving up to Rangeley. And it was funny, I had people from Grand Junction driving 90 miles north to Rangeley to see me not for acute care, but just for their wellness care and stuff. It was pretty funny. No, most people, from Rangeley used to drive to Grand Junction. It was just funny. But yeah, so we moved up there then, and my husband and I joke about the 7-year itch. And I don't know that it's truly an itch, but they talk about it. But he and I've had the itch together. So we were in Buffalo for 14 years, but we did medical school and residency, and then we did our practice and ER back there for 7 years, and then we moved out to Grand Junction where we were for about 7 years, and then we moved to Rangeley for about 7 years. It's just funny. So when we moved back over here, I didn't want to open another family practice. I didn't want to go through that emotional trauma of loving and knowing my patients and then having to change, right? So I became the medical director for one of the urgent care and family practice over here, did it for Colorado and traveled with that for a while. And then after a few years, I think 4 years, told my husband, I really just want to get back into doing this and I want to just open an obesity practice. So I left being medical director because I didn't want a conflict of interest and just started working hourly shifts for them and started my weight loss practice. Started with 1 day a week. I remember coming home and telling my husband, I saw 3 people today. I was so excited. So, but anyway, yeah, so I started there and eventually talked to him and I said, I really want to just do this full time. That's what I want to do. And so he said, honey, whatever it takes. And I do have to share this with you. It's just one of those things that was meant to be. Dr. Wilbur Asher was one of the icons in obesity medicine care. And again, through the years of eat less, exercise more, and here's some pills so you can do that. So that's what we had for people, right? That's what we had. But because the weight loss medications are controlled, a lot of people would not write them. And he was 85. He had stayed in his practice because he had people that had been on the obesity medicine appetite suppressants for 25 or 30 years with him, maintained their weight loss by not eating for years and years. But he was 85 and he was retiring. And because I was board certified, his manager called me, but I had just talked to Wallace. I said, I really want to do this full time. And he says, honey, I will support you, whatever it takes. 15 minutes later, I had a call. I get so emotional. 15 minutes later, I had a call from his office manager and said, would you be willing to see his patients because he's retiring? And I said, yes. What is he doing with his office? And she said, well, he'll be leaving the office, but why don't you come down and take a look at it? And it was funny when he heard that I was a woman, he says, oh, she's going to be one of those come down and just get pregnant. And I showed up, and of course, I'm well beyond my pregnancy years. He goes, oh, I think she might work. So, but he was a character. But he had about 300 patients is all he had. But he owned the building. He owned that. He made a very good deal for me to take over that office. And it was just one of those answered prayers. I threw it out there, and they came back and said, oh, you wanted this full time here. There you go. Like, awesome. I'll take it. So
I love that story. I don't know if you remember, but I was one of his patients, and that's how I first got to know you. In fact, I remember him showing me the letter that he wrote to NIH about the fen-phen. He said, this part of the fen is okay. This is going to damage people's hearts.
Yeah.
And the response, according to him, was, well, it's already been through all the trials. Like, we're not disrupting this now. And of course, people had died. He also, I remember sitting in his office one day, and he also said, everybody's going to be on a statin eventually. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what's a statin, right?
What is that? These $250 a month medications that they start.
Yes. Yeah. And so it's interesting. I'm on a statin, and it has significantly helped my cholesterol, even though I don't really want to take it, but I'm going to take it. You always have to weigh, like, you and I talk about, like, all right, what is the damage that carrying all this weight is causing? Possibly diabetes, all the stuff on your joints, your whole mental health, how you feel about yourself, versus taking something that, yes, may have some side effects, but is better than, the alternative. And he was quite a character. I was there when you came.
I forgot that you were already there with that, and I apologize for forgetting that piece, Sandy.
Oh, no. I mean, you had just come and everything was new, and they helped me a lot. But here's what happened: I stopped going. Like, I stopped participating, and I think when I showed up at your practice, I said, "Look, I've got to come here for the rest of my life. Like, I've got to have that check-in, that accountability for myself. And I probably could do it without it, but I really don't want to take the chance of doing that again." And so I think that maintenance piece, let's talk a little bit about that. And also let's talk about all the new weight loss drugs, because I think there's a lot of myth out there, and now it's popping up everywhere. And I'm like, how is a med spa what I'm saying is, like, I think you've got to go to a doctor like you. And I don't know if most doctors specialize in obesity unless they're doing, like, bariatric surgery or whatever. I mean, you're so different in that. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, when I first board certified in obesity medicine in 2015, there were about 1,000 of us in the country. Since that time, the role has grown immensely, and I haven't even looked at the numbers now. So there are more and more. And certainly the people that do bariatric surgeries, many of them are getting board certified in obesity medicine. But most of them, like I said, really, and I don't want to say most, but many of them don't board certified in obesity medicine because they're already a board certified a surgeon that's now specialized in that. So not all of them do that. They don't do as much of the medical end. But when I started my obesity practice in 2014, I mean, it was about, nutrition, wellness. We had metformin at the time, and we had appetite suppressants. And we were still at the point of still trying to, now I was doing those things that helped us start letting go. But those were really pretty much our medications, and that was it. So I, unlike a lot of providers, did not use appetite suppressants to help people not eat. My goal was to use it to help them make better choices. I always say I feel more like an Italian grandmother. I spend my whole day going, mangia, you eat. It's a matter of me making you spend it, and I always tell people, as long as I can help you spend it, and you can do the things that we need to do so that we can spend it, it's not about how much we eat. It's about whether we are storing it or spending it. That's the problem. And once I get people to start spending it, for those of us who have spent our entire life counting calories, being afraid of food, being afraid to eat, because every time we ate, we stored part of it. And so that was our life. And we knew that if we did eat, we would do that. And so once I'm fixing that piece for people, it's so hard to get them out of that lifelong mentality of, I actually can and should be eating, right? Yes, I need to make good choices, and hopefully the things that I use to help people with medications or whatever help make them make good choices. But it's the same thing with the injectables. There are a lot of people out there using those injectables to help people just not eat. Those injectables make people much less hungry. That makes them feel full quickly, and they feel full longer. And so, again, when they talked about Ozempic faces and those kind of things, or once you start it, you'll have to take it forever. And that's not necessarily the case, but it's just like saying, once a diabetic, always a diabetic. it's once a hypertensive, always a hypertensive. Well, maybe a lot of people that have hypertension, even when they do everything right, they eat well, they exercise well, they still have hypertension, right? I have some people that once they're a diabetic, we can get their weight down. We may be able to get them onto orals instead of insulin, but they're going to have to be on something for forever, right? Their genetics is making that decision. We can only do the best we can with the hand that we're dealt. But I can certainly do all the wrong things with the hand I was dealt too, right? So it's a matter of finding that balance of understanding, how do we get these people spending? How do we get them healthy? And I just tell people, I use as many medications and supplements as I need to get people to lose weight, and as little as I need to help them maintain it, right? But convincing the body to let go is a whole different beast. And so I just tell people, be patient as we do this, because I'll add one thing and then another. There are more and more medications. I think there are 5 more medications in development and coming down the path sometime in this next few years that are going to, again, just blow the doors off of this. And in 2015, so in 11 years now coming up on, we've gone from having 2 medicines to having a plethora, right? And why is that? Because we're finally looking at the right side of the equation. It's only been in this last 5 years you started hearing about insulin resistance, right? Nobody ever heard about that. Nobody ever heard about that piece of it. My frustration with how we're using some of the medicines is, like I said, you can see tons of ads online right now for, you can get this vial and you can do this, and just call and talk to one of our providers about it. But those are providers that are working for the pharmaceutical company that are making sure that you get that drug, hopefully at a more affordable cost, which is great. And getting access is a whole nother thing with these, right? But no matter what we do, whether I starve you, whether I use medications, we're all going to hit plateaus. And if they are not experts at knowing what to do to get you through those plateaus, I mean, I even look at some of the ads and they say, you'll be able to lose 10 or 15% of your weight. And my patients that have lost literally 100, I've got patients that have lost over 200 pounds with me. They didn't weigh 1,000 or 2,000 pounds, right? That's not the case, but we hit plateaus and you got to know how to move people through it. And there's still people, even at our bariatric conferences, that will get up with all their data and tell you to help your patients set reasonable goals. They're only going to be able to lose 10 to 15% of their weight. Within a year, they'll gain probably half of that back, but they should be able to maintain that if they keep their walking up. And I'm like, no, that's not the case. And there's still people at the bariatric conferences that will still lecture about how to help people keep their calories down. And it's still about calories. And I don't know what happens with that, but I do know at the conference, when they started, they say, how many of you tell your patients to eat less and exercise more? And there's a lot of doctors that are just coming to it. And probably a third of the people are raising their hand. And when they finish the week-long conference, they go, how many of you are going to go home and tell your patients, eat less and exercise more? And I don't know why, there's like still 5 people that raise their hands. I'm like, were you not at this conference? Were you out at the pool or something? But all the people there have absolutely realized by the time we finish, it's not just about eating less and exercising more. And so the good news is we're getting that message out there. More and more providers are understanding that. But I do hope that, just like when we used to use appetite suppressants, that people don't just get out there and feel like they've used this. It's the same thing as the gastric bypass. I have people using injectables and then coming in to see me because they've gained a bunch of weight back, or they've had bariatric surgery and I've had one woman came back after she was 150 pounds back up. It was like, oh my God, if only you'd found me like 20 pounds into this. But we got it all off of her. She's actually back at her goal weight. But, she had to go back through that again. And now she's, I think she's 3 years out and maintaining and doing fine, right? So, but these people that have bariatric surgery or that are using, they feel like they're doing one of the most extreme things possible. And then when they lose and they can't keep it off, or the body starts fixing it, because people with bariatric surgeries, the body has been put into a calorie deficit, but the body finds ways around it, right? And so then the weight starts going up and they're like, I was invincible before I could eat, I could eat however I was doing. And now look at this, it's all coming back. And they just feel like the biggest loser. They feel like it's their fault. I'm obviously never going to keep this off. And it's all, God has just decided that I deserve all this weight on me, and that's the way it's got to be. So they really feel guilty about it. And I have people using the injections now that people say, well, you're losing weight, but you're using that injection, aren't you? Yeah. So people did that with people after the surgery. Well, you've lost a lot of weight, but you had that surgery, didn't you? Like, it's some kind of a cheat. It's like, it's a tool. They're all just tools, but we don't just want one tool, because this is not one problem. It's understanding all the whole piece of it, all the different parts that play a role in it, and starting to get ahead of that. But what I love about what I do now, I can't tell you the number of people that go, this is easy. I could do this for life. Trying to not eat for the rest of your life is really hard. Trying to eat well and being mindful of that, and staying in calorie spending. Once we get you there, it is much easier to try and focus on eating than not eating, right? And so those are things that are sustainable. And for me, it's not about losing weight. It's about sustaining it. I watched my mother yo-yo for years and years and years. I yo-yoed for years and years. And it's like, I'm not doing this again. I'm not doing it anymore. Now that I understand it, if I'm going the wrong direction, I know why. And I know I have to fix that. And if I fix that, or keep that part of my life and my physiology and everything fixed, then if I'm doing the right things, I should be able to keep it controlled. And if it's not, then we got to get back in and start peeling off the layers and find out why, right? But we want to do it early, so we jump back on top of it.